Okay, so let's begin by importing our static assets, which is going to be our video texture, as well as our model that we exported from Blender. So the way Vite handles static assets is creating a public folder. So I'm going to make a public folder, and in here I'm going to create two folders, one for models, and go back to public, and then another one for textures. And then navigate to the place that you saved your models, and you can pick whatever video you want. So I have a really low quality video of Pop Stars KDA from League of Legends. So that's going to be my MP4 file. And I'm just going to click and drag that into textures because it will be a video texture. And this is the one that we exported together from Blender. So let's click and drag that file into the models. Okay, so let's close these tabs. The hotkey is just Control W. So just to clean up the tabs real quick. Okay, so let's come up to our utilities function, and I'm going to add a new file called assets.js. And this will hold a list of our assets, the name of the asset, the type of the asset, and the path to that asset. So it'll be an array with a bunch of objects. So the first one will be name, and I'll call our GLB model. I'll give it a name of house. You can name it whatever you want. Actually, room, sorry. And you can name it whatever you want. I'll give it a type. I'll call it GLB model. And then I'll give it the path there to that area. So this is the path that the loader needs when you're loading models. So that's what this is going to be. And because of Vite, we don't have to put public here. We just do /models /finale.glb. So when we put in this path to the loader, Vite will automatically take care of that public pathing there. Okay, so let's just do the video texture. So I'm gonna give it the name. So let's just make this bigger so you can see. I'm just gonna copy and paste this, and I'll call this screen for the computer screen. And then the type here will be a video texture. And then we want to do texture. Did I call it textures? Yeah, textures. So textures and then KDA. And don't forget to change the file extension to match. Okay, so there we have our assets. Okay, now let's go to the utilities again, and then create a new class called resources.js. And this will load all our resources and store it. So whenever we want to access like the GLB file, you can just access it from the resources class that has already loaded it. So I'm gonna go to sizes and just copy and paste this. Let me just expand this so we can see what we're talking about. And I'll do resources here. And we want the event emitter, and you'll see why soon enough. And let's get rid of this. And we also need to import the experience so we can get the renderer, and you'll see why in a little bit. So this dot experience equals new experience, and then this dot renderer equals this dot experience dot renderer. Okay, so we need to grab these this array here somehow. So let's go back to experience.js and import resources. So let's do that. Let's Control D, and then type in resources. And then below the renderer and above world, let's do this dot resources equals new resources. And then let's pass in assets here. And then we also need to import assets. So let's do that. So import assets from utils assets.js. So we imported assets from here, and we're just passing it to this class right here. So we can grab that here. So assets. And then let's just set a class variable, this.assets equals assets. Now if we console.log this, we should see that array of objects in our browser. And indeed we do. You can see we have that first object with the name, the path, the type, and we have that second object with the name, the path, the type. Okay, let's get rid of this, and then let's create an object. And this will hold all our loaded items. And we will import this resources into these other classes and use this object with all the loaded assets to access them. Okay, so let's have a queue. So I'm going to do this.queue equals this.assets.length. So this would return 2 because we have 2 assets. And this is just letting us know how many items are in queue to be loaded. Then we needed the loaded counter itself. And we're just going to set it to 0 because nothing's been loaded yet. Okay, let's do this.set loaders to set our loaders, and this.start loading to start loading. So I'm going to double click those, copy, Control C, and then let's just paste them. Like so. Okay, I'm going to set another loaders object, and this will just contain our loaders. Okay, in order to load a GLB file, we need the GLTF loader. So let's come up here and import the GLTF loader. I'm going to import GLTF loader. And this will be from 3.examples/JSM/loaders/GLTF loader.js. So if we come to the repo, so let's go to the 3.js repo. Let's check 3, and then let's go to examples. And then we want to use the JSM version. And let's go to loaders. And you can see we have the GLTF loader here. And we also want to do the same thing for the Draco loader. So we can just do Shift Alt down arrow to copy that, and then just change this stuff into Draco loader. Oops, should be all capital. Draco, and then loader. So now we are importing this. And one last thing we need to do to use this effectively is come into node modules and go into the 3 folder. Let's go into examples, JS, and then let's go to libs, which is short for libraries. And then you can see this Draco folder here. And what you want to do is select that folder, hit Control C, then we can close the 3 folder, and then select our public folder and hit Control V to paste that entire folder right there. Okay, so now let's set up our loaders. So this.loaders.gltf loader, GLTF loader equals new GLTF loader. And let's add another loader, and this.loaders.draco loader. Draco loader equals new Draco loader. And this.loader, then we need to set up some stuff for the Draco loader. So this.loaders, and grab that Draco loader that we just created. And we want to set its decoder path. So set decoder path. And it's right here into the Draco folder, and we don't have to do the public, so we can just do /Draco. /Draco. Then we need to assign the Draco loader to this GLTF loader. And the reason we're using a Draco loader instead of just GLTF is because we exported with compression in Blender. So if you remember when we went up here to File Export GLTF, in geometry we turn on compression, and if you actually hover over it, you can see right there Draco mesh compression, compress mesh using Draco. Okay, so this.loaders.gltf loader, so grab that GLTF loader and set the Draco loader to it. So this.loaders, and that will just be our Draco loader that we created. Now we don't need a separate loader for the video, but we pass it here anyway so we can get it all in the list of items and the queue. Okay, so now for each of our assets, we're going to check the type of the asset, and then we're going to give it its appropriate loader, and then put it into the items. Now, you might be wondering, why did we do all of this if we only have 2 assets? Well, it makes life really easy if you want to easily add another one. And especially if you have more loaders, for image textures, cube textures, basis textures, and you have all these different loaders for each different item. Honestly, you could even split the loaders into their own file if it gets too big. So for us, this seems like overkill, but it's good to structure code in a good way. Okay, so enough chat. Let's go loop through each of our assets. So for const asset of this dot assets. So remember, assets is everything in here. If asset, and then because the asset is an object, we can just use dot notation and grab the type. If asset dot type equals GLB model. Oops. If the asset type equals GLB model, then let's pick the GLTF loader. So we can just copy and paste this line here. And then we can tell it to load. And then we want the asset.path. So remember, the asset.path is right here. And then we can provide a callback for the loaded file, which is file, and pass it into another function that we'll create right after. Single asset loaded. And I'll pass in the asset itself. So that's just each of these objects. And I also want to path it. And then I'll also pass in the loaded file. And whoops, this should be single asset loaded. Okay, so let's create this function real quick. And this function will create key value pairs for us in our items object. And this will just make our life a little bit easier. So let's grab the asset and file. And then let's do this.items. And then asset.name. So we're grabbing the asset's name. Remember, each one of these is an asset, and then we're just grabbing its name. So that will be our key, and the associated thing will be our loaded file or our loaded asset. So we have key value pairs here. Let's also increment our loader count. So this dot loaded ++. Remember, we set that to 0 up here. Okay, so now we can check if this dot loaded equals this dot queue. And if this is true, it means all of our assets are loaded. And we want to create the world when our assets are loaded. So how do we make other classes react to this event? Well, that's why we have our event emitter here, because we want to emit this event. So let's just do this.emit ready. Let's come back up here to this if statement and do an else if the asset.type equals video texture, which is right here. So we don't have a loader for the video texture, but we need to perform some operations in order to use a video texture in Three.js. So here's their demo. In order to use a video texture, you need a video HTML element, and you can see they have it here. And when they create their texture, you can see they grab the element by ID as video, and then they create the video texture from that DOM element. So I don't want to hard code that in my index.html, because imagine we had multiple videos. You could just list them in assets and automatically create them, generate them in resources, instead of having to manually create them in your HTML. Okay, so let's just using, create element, typical JavaScript, to create the div element. Okay, so let's create 2 objects, and these will just be dummy objects to help us. And let's do this .video texture equals. So video will hold everything related to the HTML part, and this will just hold stuff related to the Three.js configuration for video textures. So what we can do is do this.video and create a key value pair asset.name. equals document.create element, and we want to create the video HTML element. And then let's set some parameters for this HTML element. So I'm going to just shift alt down arrow like 5 times. And so for this video asset.name, let's set its source equal to asset.path. So we're just setting its source to asset.path. Then let's make it plays inline equals true. Let's make it autoplay. You can not, this is an optional setting if you don't want to do autoplay. And I'm just going to set that to true. And then I want to set it to loop automatically. So .loop equals true. And then I just want to play this. So .play. Then from this div element, we want to create that video texture. So this .video texture, we'll pick that asset name again. And I'll put it new 3.video, video texture. And then we can just pass in our video, which is going to be this .video .asset.name. This will be our div element. And then let's set some stuff for a video texture. So I'm going to do this .video texture .asset.name. And depending on how you did your UVs, you might not have to flip this. We'll see it when we put it onto our screen, if this should be true or false. Then let's set some filters. So I'll set the min filter. Let's set the mag filter. Let's generate bitmaps to false. And let's do encoding and set it to that 3.sgbe encoding. Let's do 3.nearest filter. And let's do the same thing with here. So this should be mag. And this should also be nearest. Okay, let's go back to our browser just to make sure we don't have any errors. And it says this .loaders.gltf loaders is not a function. So let's see what the problem here is. And the problem is this should be all capital. Let's go to console. And 3 is not defined, so let's import all from 3. Let's just find where we have one and just copy and paste that. Shift that, save. Let's see if we get any errors. And we have a Draco error. So let's go back to resources. And I think I need this slash here actually. And yeah, so that's good. Okay, so what is this error? Play failed because the user didn't interact with the document first. Let's just copy and paste that and see if we can get something from Google. Accept all cookies. To make autoplay on HTML works, you just need to add the muted property. Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah. So let's just shift alt up arrow here to copy that line and let's change muted and set it to true. So does that work? Yeah, it solves our error. So Stack Overflow to the rescue. Okay, so let's make sure we're actually getting our files. So I'm going to do console.log file. Let's print out the file. Okay, so nice, we're getting our GLB file. You can see, let me zoom in here. You can see we're getting our GLB file. That's good. Now, where is our video file? Oh, that's because I never caught this again. So let's put it in here. Let's just find that, paste this here. And we want to pass the video texture, so we can just copy and paste this instead of file. Now let's console.log and see what happens. Okay, yeah, so we get our video texture and we get our GLB file. Okay, so remember we want to create the world when the assets are all ready. So let's listen to this event and create the world when everything is loaded. So we can come to world and we can just do this dot resources equals this dot experience dot resources, and remember that's from here. So experience, remember new resources here. And then when this dot resources on ready, so from the event emitter, and sorry, it should be this dot resources dot on ready. Let's create the world. In this case, all our world so far has this room. So let's just control X and paste it in there. So now when the resources are ready, our room will be created. So let's console.log this, created room. And let's go back into assets resources and console.log asset is loading. And then let's console.log all assets are done. All assets are done. And let's save that and go into the browser. And now you can see asset is loading, asset is loading. So this is true. Then it logged all assets are done, which is what we see here. All assets are done. And then let's listen to it. So we created a new room, and then it logged out and created room. And this is the order we expect, and that's great. Okay, so let's get rid of the console.logs that we did. And let's go to room. Okay, so let's get rid of our dummy cube, and let's actually get the room GLB file that we loaded. So we'll do this dot resources equals this dot experience dot resources, and then this dot room equals this dot resources dot items dot room. So remember when we came in resources here, we gave items the key value pair, which is asset name, which is here. So what we're doing here is we're getting the items object with all our items in there, and then we're using dot notation to get the room. So let's do console.log this dot room, and we should see our GLB file. Cannot read properties of undefined reading items. Oh, this should be, I misspelled it. This should be resources. And yeah, you can see it. It's outprinting from room.js, and we have our scene here. Now here we get a lot of things, but we actually just want the scene itself. So let's just do this dot actual room equals this dot room dot scene, and let's console this dot actual room. And now you can see we have our group, and in our children we have our 154 meshes that we created in Blender. So let's actually try to look at this. So I'm going to expand the window here, and let's actually take a look at this. And you can see our names are here. And if you open these arrays, you can see all our meshes exactly how they were in Blender. So look, cube 20, we have fish, we have cylinder 013, plane 007, and that's just everything, here. So, and there's our fish, and there's our fish here. It's between cylinder 16, plane 005, plane 005. Very, very awesome. Okay, so let's create a function, this dot set model. Let's just do this dot scene that we got from the experience, and then dot add this dot actual room. And let's save that and go back to our browser. And we can't see anything because we need to add some lights.